All right, welcome everyone. Great to have all of you joining us today. We are going to hang out for just a minute or two to make sure that everyone can join and get settled in. We have some amazing guests today, so be sure to grab a drink and a snack so that you don't miss a thing. I'm coming to you from Bozeman, Montana, where it is a beautifully sunny day, no snow on the ground. It's very unseasonably warm right now, and we are loving it. Patrick, how are you? Where are you at? What's the weather like?
Hey there. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and we are officially in our other season. 9 months out of the year, it's summer, and then we have something else. And we're squarely in that season. So it's, kind of, it's not bad outside, but it's not really outdoorsy weather for us either.
Does it get rainy? Do you ever get snow in Atlanta?
Ooh, yeah, like once every 5 years, and then it just locks everything up. So just we don't need that. Don't put that whammy on us.
Knock on wood.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you. Lyndon, how about you? What's going on in Portland?
Yeah, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and it's December, so it's usually rainy or snowy here, but you can see it's a beautiful sunny day today. So we're having some unseasonably dry and beautiful weather, which is nice. Although we do wish there's a little bit more precipitation for snow on the mountain. So we're looking forward to that coming up in the next couple months here in Oregon.
Yes, absolutely. I know at Big Sky here, the base layer a couple weeks ago was like 10 inches. It's like, oh boy. So we're all hoping for that.
Yeah, they've tried to open skiing the last couple of weekends, and they've been like, "Okay, we're gonna open it." Actually, no, we're not.
That's rough. All right,
Yeah.
well, we're just past the hour, so I'm going to officially get us started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Arno, and I am the Field and Event Marketing Manager on the XYPN marketing team. Today, I am thrilled to host this event, How to Turn Your Year-End RIA Review into Next Year's Goals, with XYPN members Lyndon Cornett and Patrick King. I have just a few housekeeping items to go over. If you have any questions for us to address throughout the session, please be sure to submit them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of Zoom, as that will be easier for us to monitor than the chat. We do have some questions that were submitted beforehand, so we'll be answering a mix of both those and questions that are asked live throughout our conversation. Also, when the webinar is over, you will be able to fill out a survey in Zoom. We would love to hear how we did, and please also include ideas for topics you would like to hear about in the future. We do host a free webinar every month, so next month be sure to join Team XYPN on January 10th for 30 sales tips for RIA owners in 30-ish minutes. That will be featuring myself, Eli Rickert, who is the XYPN Senior Business Development Specialist, and Chris Johnson, who is an XYPN Manager of Business Development, and we'll have lots of great advice to share with you. So be sure to register right now in the chat if you want to kick off your year with a bang. Last thing, we are launching a new virtual program in 2024 called the Solutions Spotlight. Every month, we'll host 1 or 2 webinars featuring solutions for RIA owners. Most of them will be partners of XYPN, but there will be some solutions that we just actually believe in. So be sure to join us for our first webinar on January 16th, Delivering Tax Smart Strategies Using New Roth Conversion Techniques in eMoney. And that will be presented by Chris Mariello of eMoney. And this will be an informative session that you won't want to miss, so be sure to, you guessed it, register in the chat. Phew. All right, enough with the boring stuff. Let's get to the reason that you all are here. Patrick, would you please introduce yourself and tell us about your firm?
Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick King. My firm is Prana Wealth. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia. I officially started, I guess, in the fall of 2017, but really my first year was 2018. And then XYPN has been there along with me the entire way. So, yeah,
Great,
that's
thank
what I
you.
got.
Lyndon, how about you?
Hi, I'm Lyndon Cornett. My firm is Seagrass Financial. I'm located in Portland, Oregon. I'm a solo RA firm. Um, I'm a career changer, so I spent my first 20 or so years working in the tech field, working for Intel. I finally exited Intel this year after almost 25 years there, and I specialize in working with Intel employees, especially Intel executives. So I launched my firm almost exactly 8 years ago in January of 2016. And it's been moving along ever since.
Perfect, that's great, thank you. So let's lay some foundation. So maybe we can talk first about what you did wrong in the early years. Like, how did you discover that you needed to do a year in review to set goals for next year? Lyndon, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I would say my first year in business, I took on way too many clients and not realizing how much time it would take to onboard each one. So I think I had something like almost 20 clients in my first year, and I spent many, 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 many hours and meetings and all that kind of thing with each one. So um, after that, I basically kind of limited my number of new clients, per year, per quarter going forward. So I would say that was one of my mistakes. Also, just, when I launched my firm, I had an idea of how I wanted to do financial planning, um, and then, of course, when you actually do it, you realize that some things work really well and some things don't. So a lot of what I do at the end of each year is kind of look back at, what I'm doing with clients and what's working, what's not working, and kind of what to do more of, what to do less of, what to stop doing, what to start doing, things like that. So a lot of my year-end review is kind of looking back and saying, okay, process-wise, how can I make the planning experience better for my clients? And I get a lot of feedback from clients as well on, what did they find value from, and what did they maybe not find value from that might have taken me a lot of time, so it wasn't really worth doing, basically.
Great. And quick clarifying question from Mike. What is your cap now on new clients per quarter?
I'm not actively seeking new clients at this point. But for a long time I was at no more than one new client per quarter. So like 0 to 1 per quarter for quite a while. But that was while I was still working for Intel. So for my first 7 years of business, I was still working for Intel part-time, so I was being pretty protective of my time. I think now that I've left Intel and I've kind of caught up on everything, I might consider doing maybe 1 or 2 per quarter going forward, but I'm not going to do more than that because I spend a lot of time with new clients.
Gotcha. And looking back on that first year when you brought on 20, if you could have redone that, what would you have done in terms of onboarding new clients?
I think I would have just um, told people, I mean, I would have instituted the waiting list that I eventually instituted much sooner. So after that first year of 20 clients, I basically said, okay, I have a waiting list and I will let you know when I have a slot available, and you can either go on the waiting list or I'll help you find somebody else if you want to start right away. But I probably should have done that like in the first quarter or two when I was like totally overwhelmed with new clients and I was brand new at being a financial planner too. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. All right, Patrick, how about you? What did you kind of do wrong at the beginning that made you realize you needed to start looking at your year in whole to set new goals?
Well, Amy, if we're going to talk about everything I did wrong, we're going to need more than an hour. So we'll just limit this to like the year-end planning kind of stuff. So
Yep.
I think, in the beginning, one of the things that I did wrong, and this is just how I work, I would start making goals, whether it be revenue goals or number of new clients or AUM or whatever. And I think part of the problem there that I ran into was that there's a lot in those goals that I couldn't control. So as my practice has evolved and I've learned things, you know, um, to Linda's point where, sometimes you do things that don't work. I've started making goals where they're less about things that I can't control and more about things that I can. For instance, every year I come up with a list of strategic initiatives that I want to accomplish in the next year. And I'll schedule them in like Asana over the coming year. And if I get to check all those boxes, whether it's a process improvement, website update, whatever that is, those are things that I can control. And that gives me a little bit more, I guess, ability to have a say in the outcome of the goals. So I think that was a big one. And then, of course, you either undershoot or overshoot some of those like revenue or AUM or client goals. And then at the end of the day, like, all right, what are we doing here? So I don't know. That was kind of what I learned the hard way.
Got it. Well, should we start diving into this? So when do you start to think about your analysis for the year? So is this something that you start in October, November, December? Do you wait till the fully end of the year? So kind of walk us through what your whole year-end review process looks like, and then we can jump into goals. So Patrick, do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've started having what I call a firm retreat in December. So I do spring meetings and fall meetings. So once fall meetings wrap up, I'll have a firm retreat where a couple of days I'll just shut everything else out and do a couple of things. Number one, I'll block time for the coming year, whether that's spring meetings, fall meetings, conferences, committee meetings like investment committee or compliance committee, cybersecurity, those things. Those get blocked off on the calendar, number one. Number two, I will list out those strategic initiatives for the year and plan them in Asana. So they all have dates associated with them. So I've got waypoints along the way to know if I'm making progress or not. And then third, what I'll do during that firm retreat is to I have a spreadsheet that I track all of my business metrics with. I'll create the next year's spreadsheet and have it ready to go on Jan 1 because December, you can't close out numbers. Like, so, I have to wait until first week of January to close out the numbers for 2023. So I'll, block time for that the first part of the year after I get back from New Year's and just let that be that. But it doesn't mean that I stop planning for 2024 until that happens, I guess.
Got it. And what does that spreadsheet include? Can you give us the most important metrics that are on there?
Oh boy. Yeah. So a lot of it is revenue sources and then expense sources. I use a lot of the same categories from the XYPN benchmark study in my personal tracking here when it comes to expenses. So it's a one-to-one, I guess, data transfer whenever that survey comes up every year. I also track the things that I can control from a business development and marketing standpoint, whether it's, YouTube is my marketing strategy. So, I can create the number of videos. I can't create the watch time. So how many videos did I create? How many email newsletter campaigns did I send out? And then, of course, the sales activity too. How many initial calls? How many meetings during my sales process get actually moved through? And then, of course, how many clients sign up.
Great. And can you talk us through some of your tech stack? Maybe where are you pulling these numbers from? Like, what's the most helpful for you to track these metrics so folks know, like, what should they get in place when they're getting started?
Oh boy. Well, I really use a lot of the XYPN tech stack. So I use Wealthbox, Right Capital. Those are two keystones in my tech stack. I do use Hubly as well. I've started relying more on Hubly this year. Also, Smart RIA for compliance. Actually, I have to look at my web browser because there are like so freaking many of these programs, right? So for email newsletter list, I use Active Campaign. It's a little bit more advanced than MailChimp, but I like it a lot. Of course, Calendly for scheduling, Asana for project management. Let's see, I'm at Schwab. I use Box for document storage. And then for marketing, a Holistiplan. That's a big part of my practice. I use, of course, YouTube for marketing. I use a program called CoSchedule to send out, I guess, ancillary social media campaigns. And I think is that not enough? You need.
No, that's great. So that spreadsheet has all these metrics, and then you have to go to each one of those things to pull all the numbers that you're interested in.
Correct.
Got it. Perfect. And has that evolved over time? So as you were looking at that each year, so you probably started with just a couple and then realized, like, I need more. Like, tell us about that evolution.
Yeah, it's just I started tracking this. I'm a recovering engineer. I guess I'm a career changer still but that happened in 2007, so it's been a while. But I'm very kind of organized, so to a fault maybe. So I've always had a spreadsheet, but that spreadsheet has evolved over time, and of course, the way I've interacted with clients has evolved as far as like whether it's AUM or retainer or one-time planning fees, which of the one-time stuff has largely gone away from me at this point. And then, of course, the marketing stuff has evolved as well, too. So So yeah, it's just kind of evolved as my practice has.
Great. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, Lyndon, how about you? When you get started on your year-end review, what does the process look like for you?
I would say I get started right around like late November, early December, and my year-end review process kind of spans December and January, maybe sort of like Patrick's does as well. I'm a fixed fee advisor. I don't do AUM. And so one of the things I do first is I look through all of my clients and what they're currently paying me, to see which ones potentially need a fee increase the next year, either because they've moved up a tier, to in terms of my fee schedule, or in many cases because they started working with me a while ago when my fees were lower. So I don't necessarily always increase clients' fees right away. It's kind of like a case by case basis. And then I also, for many years, I went through my client list and I kind of said, which of these clients do I least enjoy working with? And I would move them along to somebody else. So I've now moved along all of those clients that I did not enjoy working with. And so now it's more of a, which clients maybe are going to be up for a fee increase next year. And then kind of having that in the back of my head, I kind of like Patrick, I have many spreadsheets, but in the spreadsheet, I kind of bold the ones that are going to be due for a fee increase next year, and sort of make a plan for that. I also have a study group, and we all create kind of a annual review PowerPoint, or we use Google Slides. Maybe 6 to 8 slides that talks through our previous year, by the numbers, by whatever metric we care about. We're a diverse group of 5 of us. We all have very different business models. But in terms of number of clients, amount of revenue, amount of profit, et cetera, but then also going into something more like, what worked, what didn't, and then what are our goals for the coming year. And then we share it all, we discuss, and that's kind of part of my review process, is kind of going through all of that with the other people in my study group. And then usually in terms of forward goals, I don't have revenue goals or client acquisition goals because I'm not actively trying to grow at this point. So my goals are more like process goals or education goals, things that I would like to learn about or learn in more detail for the coming year, as well as personal goals as well. So like Patrick, I also block out a bunch of weeks on my calendar. So I'll typically block out a few weeks in the spring, maybe a total of 4, 5, 6 weeks in the summer, and then some more time around the holidays where, I'm planning to not have client meetings. And that may be because I'm planning a vacation, or it may just be because I want to take some time to work on stuff that's not client facing, basically. So that's kind of like at the very end of the year / beginning of the year, I try to map out my coming year in terms of, when I'll be available for client meetings and when I won't be available for client meetings. So those are kind of the major tasks that I do at year end. Other than, of course, getting ready for ADV updates and things like that.
Right.
Right. So calculating, I have a pretty complicated situation in terms of I trade client assets at 5 different custodians. So it's
Ooh.
pretty onerous to calculate AUM. So that takes me a few hours or most of a day to take care of that. So I try to do that early in January, and then just be ready for whatever's going to happen in terms of compliance, ADV updates. The state of Oregon has a number of specific requirements that you have to submit and things like that. So I try to sort of work on that kind of all at this like January or December, January time of year.
Gotcha. And so in your presentation to your study group, you said you all have different metrics that you care about. So what metrics are you putting in your presentation?
I mostly look at, total number of clients, number of clients in and out of my niche, or, kind of grouped. So, like number of clients that I would consider to be Intel employees or retirees, number of clients who are, um, kind of other working employees, and then retirees, as well as, biggest clients, smallest clients, clients I'm thinking of, you know, either raising fees or moving along, what my average fees are, things like that. Because I'm not AUM, like I basically I set the fixed fee per client for the year, and then they just pay me a quarterly fixed fee. So, that average fee number sort of goes up over time. But that's something I'm watching as well.
Gotcha. And for your clients, so you said they might graduate to a different tier, I think. So do you have a different fixed fee based on like their net worth, their income or something?
Yeah, I have a couple different tiers. I mean, it's 4 different tiers, and I would like a complexity-based fee, but clients don't understand that. So I just use like a total, total portfolio, you know, tiers basically. So 0 to 1 million, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 and up. Um, and so they don't move very often, right? But when
Gotcha.
they move, they know that they have more money now, and I found that correlates reasonably well with complexity. It's not perfect, but it's reasonable. So I haven't, since I moved to that kind of structure, I haven't really found a big mismatch in terms of, complexity versus the fee they're paying.
Gotcha. And how about for your tech stack? So where are you pulling these numbers from? What technology do you use to help with your year-end video?
I use a lot of Google, so a lot of spreadsheets. I use Right Capital as well for financial planning. I don't do any marketing, so I don't have any of those types of things. I use Wave for accounting, so that's where all of my financials come from. And then I use the same compliance software that you use, Patrick. That's part of the XYPN stack. But almost everything is in Google. So, between Google Sheets, Google Docs, I use Google Meet for meetings. I use, Google Slides. Almost everything is there other than financial planning software. All my, file sharing is in Google, all that stuff. So, I try to keep as much as possible inside of Google. I just switched over to Google appointment scheduling. So I'm doing all my scheduling through Google Calendar as well now, too.
Cool. Do they have a similar functionality? I'm just curious, like Calendly?
Yep.
Wow, that's great. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, well, let's talk about benchmarks. So Patrick, when you're looking at that spreadsheet, do you have like a red flag for revenue? Do you have different benchmarks that like, how do you define success when you're looking back on that year? Can you talk us through that? And then maybe how that's evolved over your firm too?
Red flags? I mean, with the
That's
first like
aggressive.
2 years, probably the first 3 years were just all big red flags. It started with 0. So it's tough, right? I mean, anybody that started a firm knows it's no joke. But so I don't know about red flags. It's just going to be what it's going to be. I try to keep it super simple and keep my pricing models so where it makes sense to begin with. So, for me, it's all about just tracking those metrics every month. And so what I'll get is like a running EBOC number. So earnings before owner's compensation, which is basically margin in our business, right? So I try to keep the minimum EBOC at 55%, 55% margins. And then so that kind of tells me, how I'm tracking with business expenses relative to revenue. And I can't control whether people say yes or no to become a client or not, but I can control the health of the business, right? And so I just keep doing my thing and let the process play out. So I don't know about red flags, but I just watch that EBOC number.
Great. And is there a time when, like, if you have a goal for next year, so if you want to have 30 more clients next year, and so you're going to have to invest more in marketing, and so you might spend more. No, he's shaking it. No, I'm not going to. Okay.
Yeah,
Just trying to figure out
again,
if it like might be a reason for it to fluctuate, but you know that, and you define your goal based on that. That's kind of where I'm headed with that.
well, again, like I've stopped doing the goals like that. Like
Sure.
I've always wanted to say, yes, I'm going to add like 10 clients or whatever it is. But again, you can't control whether people sign on the dotted line. What I can control, and so this may be to your point here, is like I can control the number of YouTube videos that I create for my marketing. So that's my marketing, YouTube.
Yep.
That translates to a certain number of watch hours, which translates to a certain number of introductory calls, which translates to a certain number of clients. So I could ramp up the number of videos that I create, and then increase the watch time and increase, at the end of the day, the number of clients that come in. Now, there's marginal utility to that, right? Because at some point you won't be able to service your clients or onboard new clients. So there's an upper bound to that. But that's something that I track. For me, when I think about, all right, what do I want to, what are the goals for me are like, okay, I need more nuance in my sales process by adding like a video here from an automated email or something like that. And I'll just start checking those things off throughout the year in 2024, basically. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
Is that
no,
kind of
that's really
okay?
helpful. So the
Yeah,
main metric for you is e-box. So that's really helpful for people then as they're thinking about launching their firm or what they can do in their existing firm.
exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lyndon, how about you? Do you have any benchmarks that you try to reach? And we've talked about, your clients and like shooing some out the door that aren't helpful, but what else do you look at to maintain really the health of your business?
Yeah, I don't really look at number of clients or revenue or anything like that. That just, it is what it is. I look more at uh, do I have any clients who maybe are taking way more time than they should, or how is my like number of hours per client that I spend, basically. I have some clients who want to meet once a year, and I have some clients who would love to meet every month. And I try to sort of set the expectation that, like, okay, we can meet once a month for the first 3 to 6 months, but then eventually you're gonna move to my sort of typical cadence of meeting every 3-4 months, unless there's an emergency, right? But I don't really have the type of model. I know plenty of advisors, or not plenty, but some advisors who meet with their clients monthly, or even every 2 months or something like that. That's not me. So I'm not going to help them, every month figure out their budget, that kind of thing. And if that's what they need, then I refer them to somebody else, basically. So I'm just mostly looking for like a mismatch of client needs and my preferred delivery mechanism, basically. Um, that's really the main thing I'm looking for, is just kind of looking over my clients and what's working and what's not, basically.
Great. And that, I think you mentioned like start, stop, continue. So that's part of that exercise. So what are
Right.
some other things that like in the past that you've done for start, stop, continue, just to give folks some ideas of like, what are some things that you've gotten rid of or some things that you've started based on your year in review?
Well, I used to do a lot more with cash flow and budgeting, and I basically stopped doing that. So I'll basically give clients kind of a tutorial on how to use Right Capital to track their expenses. And then we sort of make a spreadsheet of like, what do you think you're spending on these different categories? And then I kind of leave it to them to monitor that over time. Like, I'll set up a spreadsheet for them if they want to, but they have to fill it out. I'm not doing it for them, because I found that A, I didn't enjoy that, and B, it took a lot of my time. So I'd rather focus on tax issues or strategy issues or that kind of thing. So I'd say what I've been doing more and more of over time is focusing on tax. So I have like a document per client called, 2023 tax notes, that has, like maybe a dozen different sections. It's very similar to what Holistaplan puts out, like in an automated way. But basically, I go through and I say for each client, what have we done during the course of the year um, that affects their tax return. And clients find this hugely valuable. So like, I create the template at the beginning of the year. I send them a link. It's a Google Doc, so we both can edit it. They add anything through the course of the year that will affect their taxes. I add things that will affect their taxes. I put like once they file their prior year return, we put a little summary of what happened last year, or things like tax loss carry forwards, etc. When we do things like two-step Roth contributions and conversions, we add that to make sure that they can give that information to their CPA and it gets reported correctly. And then, of course, I review the draft of every tax return before it gets filed. I'd say maybe a third of my clients are self-preparing, so they prepare on TurboTax, and the other 2/3 work with a CPA. But I would say 90% of the time I find an error in the draft. So either something was missing because the CPA didn't know about it, or something was entered incorrectly because the client didn't know they had to enter it, or something like that. So I would say kind of focusing on tax, not just tax prep, but like throughout the year, preparing for a smooth tax prep process is probably one of the biggest things that I've started doing more and more of over the years.
Right. So I'm hearing stop spending time on things that are really time consuming and maybe not that valuable. Start doing things that really provide value to your clients and maybe don't take as much time.
Right. Exactly.
Perfect. How about for you, Patrick? What do you got for stop, start, continue?
Ooh, stop. Stop adding new software. That's like, it's funny, I just kind of teed myself up for that one, but that's literally one of the things like I'm focusing on in 2024 is I've tried to continue to improve my practice over the years. That this year was a big year with implementing Hubly and processes firm-wide. So I'm just going to let it ride. And it's a challenge because I see things like Income Labs and I'm like, ooh, Income Labs. So, but I'm not doing any new software in 2024. I'm not creating new processes. I'm just refining the ones that I have. So that's the stop. Stop chasing the squirrels, Patrick. Self. So what were the other ones? Stop, start,
Yep. Continue.
start. I think I'm good with that. Like again, like I'm not going to start anything new because I think I've got my firm at a place where I'm happy with it. I just need to refine. And continue is just be boring. So one of my things for 2024 is to be boring. Don't don't get distracted. I've got my strategic initiatives planned out for next year, the things that I want to accomplish and want to finish and implement, and don't add anything new to that list because the scope creep is a thing, right? So I've started a running 2025 strategic initiative list as things come up next year, and they go on the 2025 list. If they're not on the 2024 list on Jan 1, they're going to get pushed to 2025 because I'm one of those people you just kind of overdo it. So that's one thing that maybe I don't know. That's not a continue thing. That's just a new thing. Dang it. I started something new. Sorry.
That's okay. We'll forgive you. Well, let's talk about goals. So we had a great question about, well, actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to back up a little bit. We did have a question asked again by Mike. How do you track hours per client? Do you track hours to prepare the initial plan, et cetera? So I think Lyndon, you had touched on this of like, I'm spending too much time on someone. How are you tracking those hours?
So for every new client, I start them out with a 15-hour planning package before taking them on as an ongoing client. So for that first, usually 3 to 4 meetings, I'm actually tracking hours because they are paying me hourly, right? So I use Toggle for time tracking. I keep a spreadsheet with how much time I spend on each part of the plan. And then at the end of the 15 hours, we come back together and we discuss, do we want to move to ongoing? Do we want to continue hourly? Do you guys feel like you're good? You come back in a couple of years, whatever. So that's kind of my process up front. For clients that have moved into ongoing, I kind of track it at a really high level, which is number of meetings per year. So I kind of know each meeting is going to take me, maybe an hour of prep, 60 to 90 minutes of meeting, maybe an hour of follow-up. So I assume 5 hours per meeting that I do with clients because I do a lot of prep and follow-up for meetings. So I kind of look at number of meetings per client per year. And then I have a lot of kind of other touch points that are emails and things like that. But those are very standardized. So like every client who's in X situation gets Y email at a certain time of the year, right? So I don't really track that one on a per client basis, because if sending out 3 emails versus 30 is like not that different in terms of the amount of time that it takes.
Thank you. Patrick, what about you? Do you track hours by client?
I don't do timesheets or expense reports.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons I started my own RIA.
I like it. Perfect. Okay, let's talk about goals. So as you've sat down, we'll say it's now January 4th or whenever you're back from the Cayman Islands, Patrick, that you're going to close out the year, you're going to look at these numbers, you're going to set your goals. So as you're reviewing those numbers, what are the big goals? Do you have medium, small goals? Like how many goals are we talking? Do you write them down? Talk us through that process. And we did have a question of like, how many big goals is too many big goals? So tell us about that.
Who, me first?
Yes, you first, Patrick.
Oh
please.
boy. Well, I will say that if you're asking how many big goals is too many, the answer is yes. There's probably too many, so dial it back down. So, and let me look at my Asana real quick. So, for me next year, goals, again, they're not things that I can't control. They're things like updating my website or changing my minimum AUM number or establish or refining my estate plan review process in Hubly. Let's see what else. Yeah, and then planning the videos that I create for marketing. So those are things like goals that I can control. And so if it's something like an ongoing goal, like a weekly video, that's something I can track on a weekly basis, right? For everything else, I'll just do the first most important thing. And just being distracted, I think, kind of has slowed me down. So I'll triage them in order of importance, whether it's time importance or importance to the operation of the firm, and focus on one thing at a time. And when I check that thing off, I move to the next thing. And at the end of the year, it either gets done or it doesn't get done. Nothing on this list is so critical that the firm is going to, like, the wheels are going to come off, or so. So that's kind of how I'm handling it, because one of the things early on, there's so much that you can do and so much you need to do as an RIA owner. I find it easy to get overwhelmed. And that's not the reason, that's not one of the reasons I started my own firm, right? Like I already worked way too hard for someone else. And it turns out like I'm just as bad of a boss sometimes. So my process of getting over that is to just do the next most important thing and focus on it and check that box and then move to the next thing. The world's not going to end at this point. My firm is established and up and running. So my goals is to just do the next thing and see where the chips fall at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's great. And I do want to touch on something that you said before. So I'm sure there's people listening that are like, I really want to be able to have goals about how many clients I bring on. Like, let me do this. So the one thing that you said, I think that's really helpful though, is you still can't control that. But what you can control is understanding some of the process and like how those metrics are interlinked, like you were talking about with your YouTube. Because we do this at XYPN too, right? Like we have a certain number of goals for members that we need to bring in. So we have to look at, okay, how many sessions on our website leads to how many intro calls, leads to how many closed deals, right? So if you can kind of understand how these metrics tie together and funnel down, you still can't control it, but it helps you understand that. So if you want to spend time on like trying to create like these different like monetary or new client metrics, like just see how they work together. That's still a decent use of your time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, that's your marketing funnel, right?
Yeah, yep.
So if you've built a marketing funnel, and Lyndon's in a place where, there's, no need to do that. And that's awesome because, she can spend more time developing client service process, right?
Yep.
So, you build out your marketing funnel and you track those metrics, and there are things that you can control upstream that, will result in things downstream. So I have a pretty good idea how many watch hours on YouTube results in this many prospect calls.
Yep.
And then, I track that. But also too, the other thing you have to think about is that, we both have onboarding processes too. So like if you can have a great marketing funnel, but if you don't know what to do with them when they sign up, that's a problem too. So you have to balance all of these things, I think.
But you could have a goal for the onboarding process of my onboarding process should only be 3 meetings this year instead of 4, or whatever is gonna like be helpful to you, right?
Exactly. That's something that you can control. It's like, all right, I want to have a 3 meeting process, and then I want my average onboarding time to be less than 60 days.
Yes. Not, I want to onboard 60 customers.
Right. Right.
Yeah, perfect. That's super helpful. Lyndon, how about you? Tell us about your goal setting process.
I usually like to have 3 big goals for the coming year, and they're in different categories. So I usually have one that's a process goal, so something that I want to work on that's an improvement, something that's a education goal, something I want to learn about or become more of an expert on, and then something that's a personal goal. So that's completely outside of work. And I don't like to have more than 3 because I feel like you can't really um, focus if you have too many goals. Back to Patrick's point. I'll just mention, since I forgot when we were talking about tech stack, I also use Asana for project management and task tracking, and that is like a lifesaver in terms of me figuring out what I actually need to get done today or this week or this month. Like everything that I'm going to do is a task for myself in Asana. And so if I know, okay, like I really want to work on, this thing in May, I go and give myself an Asana task to get it done in May. And then when May rolls around, it pops up and I do it. So, it's basically like the thing that keeps me on track and keeps me organized. And I also try to make it so that I don't have more than like 1 or maybe 2 like mentally intensive things to do in a given day. So I might have a lot of like, send an email or check on this or, that kind of thing. But things that really require a lot of thinking, I try not to have more than 1 or maybe 2 at the most in a day so that I can really focus on those things.
Great. And so Asana helps you manage those goals throughout. I'm not familiar with it, sorry. So that helps you manage those goals throughout the year, and then do you mark them done and have a party? Like, what does that look like when you do finish a goal?
Yeah, I mean, it just every day it shows up, and here's like my list of the things for today, tomorrow, this week, next week, and then when they're done, I just check them off, and then they go away. And then once all of my today goals are done, then I kind of look at tomorrow or the rest of the week and say, do I feel like doing some of the like getting ahead on some of my future stuff, or am I done for the day, basically?
Very cool. And Patrick, you said that's the same for you then in Asana?
Correct. I use Asana to track all of my strategic initiatives for the firm, and so that's what I use for myself. I use Wealthbox for internal tasks with my team. I use Right Capital's tasks for shared tasks with me and my clients. So I check 3 places to know, all right, me, team, clients using the different software. So that's maybe not the most efficient way to do it, but it's working for me.
And tell us about your team, Patrick. So do you help your team set goals as well? Or what does that look like working with? Because Lyndon's a solo advisor. Do you have a team?
Yeah, well, I have back office support.
Okay,
I use Total Office, who is amazing. I've really appreciated them a lot. So no goals for them other than just keep doing what they're doing. And I appreciate their help.
Great, perfect. We'd have a question of best ways to bring value in annual client reviews besides portfolio reviews. So we're kind of flipping the coin a little bit. So what does it look like to do your annual review with the client, and how do you bring value to them? Patrick, do you want to start us?
Oh boy, yeah, this is where the opinions come out. So, all right, well, portfolio review, okay, that is absolutely something that is valuable that we do. But I don't know if it's even like the top 5, maybe not top 10, right? So the portfolio is going to be what it's going to be. Those are conversations that I feel like I need to have with the clients from the outset of the relationship, and then constantly along the way. I'm not trying to do any active trading or stock picking or anything like that. It's just be boring and do the things that we have a good idea are going to persist over long periods of time, and then cash flow management if we're stressed about the markets. So that's part of it. Like, it needs to be communicated, and I feel like I present portfolio performance reports and all of that. However, when it comes to value. It sounds like a certain book by a certain author. I think we should have our own value propositions. Now, what that looks to you could be different than what it looks like to me. And it's up to the client to decide what's valuable, I think. So I feel like I've got a value proposition where I'm doing the financial planning, I'm helping them retire. We're, not only looking at the investments, we're doing tax planning, insurance planning, estate planning. I'm contacting the CPAs, insurance agent, the estate planning attorney. We're putting their financial world in order. That's valuable. Outside of that, okay, we can add things, we could add nuance, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is it just changes people's lives, right? So I don't know how much more valuable that you can get. So I've stopped trying to look for more stuff to put into the year, because we're really I feel like I'm on top of things, and my clients appreciate me. And if they don't, they won't be clients, and that's fine. I'm going to be perfect for a lot of people that are in my niche, and I'm not going to be perfect for a lot of people that aren't, and that's okay. I don't need to be perfect for the world. I just need to be perfect for 50 to 75 people. So I don't know.
I love that. No, that's super helpful. Thank you. Lyndon, how about for you? So we're talking about making the year-end review valuable for your clients.
Yeah, so I don't really do annual reviews. I mean, I'm meeting with most of my clients every 3-4 months, and we talk about whatever's important at the time. I'll say, similar to Patrick, there's a lot of upfront work in terms of investments and portfolio and making sure that everybody's on board with the strategy. And I do a lot of education and, make sure they understand what is going to happen with their portfolio and that they're going to lose money sometimes, and et cetera. And then, to be honest, we don't talk about investments really almost ever after that initial, you know, it's an intensive process up front to get the kind of the buy-in on the strategy, but then there's really not a whole lot of discussion about investments after that. So I would say the things that are valuable to clients, I already talked about the tax notes that I put together through the year, and kind of helping them in terms of getting everything together for their CPA, reviewing their tax returns, things like that. I also do a income and tax withholding projection, usually in April, May timeframe, and then again towards the end of the year, just to make sure that they're good in terms of not going to have to pay penalties for taxes, things like that. They find that extremely valuable as well. So that way we can update their paycheck withholding if they're still working, things like that. I will say that Right Capital added a really cool feature. I think it was this year, where they have a sand key diagram of cash flows, where you show all of your income and then what's going to expenses, what's going to goals. They estimate taxes, they look at savings. And I've started bringing up that diagram with every client, and looking at what next year's cash flows are going to look like at a high level, not at a line item budget level, but okay, you're making, X dollars, what percentage is going to spending? What about goals? What are your big ticket items that you're one-time expenses for next year? What's the, approximate estimate for what you're going to owe for taxes? How much are you saving? What percentage are you saving? Do you have extra money available that's going to a taxable account that we could consider putting somewhere else, that kind of thing? At that level, every time I've brought that up with a client in the past year, it's been a great discussion, and they really love that visual as well. So I would say that's one of the biggest things. And then the other thing that comes up is employee benefits reviews. So, I meet with, most of my clients who are still working sometime in the October, November timeframe, and go through all of their employee benefits with them. Maybe not after I've been working with them for 3-4 years, because they're not changing a lot often. But if they get a new job, or if we haven't gone through that process, most people don't really understand that. And so they find a lot of value in kind of going through that with me. And because many of my clients are the same employer, I'm very familiar with the benefits, right? So I can tell them in a lot of detail, exactly how things work, and what the different options are and trade-offs and things like that.
That's great.
So yeah, like Patrick said, there's very little about investments it's like maybe the 10th item on the agenda. So it's really way more about planning, taxes, benefits, cash flow, that kind of stuff.
I will say that I feel like in my experience in working at prior firms, I think if you lead off with investments and make it about the investments, then that's what the clients will expect from you. And as we all know, there's a limit to what's available in the public markets. So our job is to do the best we can to make sure that the clients see that and don't make the behavioral mistakes. But again, I feel like our value is much more in the financial planning, tax planning, all of that than the investment piece.
Great. Well, thank you. So this is the pre-submitted one. It's kind of in line with what we're talking about, but since we got some time, let's ask it. So what is the best way to go after high net worth investors if you don't do webinars and seminars? So can either of you speak to this? Patrick, do you want to try first?
Oh boy. Yeah. Best way. I don't know if there is a best way to do that. There may be a best way for you. I will say, believe it or not, I'm actually pretty introverted, like 7 out of 10. So, those business card swap things where everyone would go network and all that stuff, like I would rather slide down a cheese grater than do one of those things. So awful, awful uncomfortable for me. So basically what happened was I had the camera equipment, I had the lighting and audio equipment, and YouTube became the thing that I enjoy doing. And that's how I market myself. Right. And so that's how I get in touch with high net worth folks. You may not like cameras, but you have the audio stuff. Podcasting might be a thing to do. Find a thing that's unique to you. Lyndon's is a perfect example of having a natural niche and going after those folks because, she knows those benefit programs like the back of her hand, right? So like, okay, that's a great niche too. Another example would be Adam Schmela his wife was an optometrist, so he just lived in that world and he niched down to that too. So easy to talk to those folks. Having a niche, I guess, may come up from time to time through XYPN. I don't know. It does make your processes easier, and it will make your path towards finding those high net worth prospects easier as well, I would say. But I don't think that there is one answer for everybody.
No, that's really helpful. Patrick, can I share I just went to your YouTube channel and it started. So can I share it for folks so they can check it
Yes, of
out?
course.
Okay,
Yeah, of course.
perfect. I think it's really helpful. And you have, what, 35,000 followers? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Lyndon, how about you? Do you want to try to speak to this?
I have nothing useful to say
Okay.
about how to go after high net worth investors. I don't do any marketing. And all of my client growth is through people just like randomly either come to my website or referrals from clients. So I can't say anything that's actionable in terms of how to do that. I guess maybe the one thing is that to be clear about what your fees are. And if you have minimums or you work with specific types of people, to kind of make sure that that's clear on your website so that you don't get inundated by a lot of people who don't meet your minimums if you have them or, wouldn't be a good client for you. I'll just also say that you asked about mistakes earlier. One of the mistakes I made early on was I would jump into ongoing relationship with people right away. That's why I've stopped doing that. So now I've started this. I start every single new relationship off with a 15-hour planning package, and that's a really, really effective way of figuring out, do I enjoy working with the person? Do they get a lot of value out of what I do? Are they responsive? And can they afford to pay me, basically? And that's actually a decent way to kind of weed out people who are not going to be good long-term clients, is to say, here, I can give you 15 hours of planning and get you set up on a great path. And but I don't think it makes sense for you to hire me right now because that money that you would be paying me would be better off going somewhere else. And so that's kind of a way to say, to avoid taking on ongoing clients who are maybe not really going to be able to add to your bottom line in the long run.
Yeah, that's great. And understanding the complexities that like a high net worth individual might have and being able to manage those well, because then they probably know other high net worth individuals. So then if that's your niche and you can do it well, then they'll spread the word, I think, is hopefully the whole point of having a niche, right?
Right.
Great. Well, we're kind of getting towards the end here. So let's wrap up then with Patrick, like when's the one main takeaway that you want folks to have from today about how to look at your year-end review and start with goals fresh for next year?
Yeah, I would say the one thing I would say would be when you're making goals, how much of those do you can control, right? I mean, you can't control what the markets are going to do. You can't control if people sign on the bottom line. So make it about things that are within your control, and then just be disciplined about that. Yeah.
Great.
Just keep it simple.
That. Thank you. Lyndon, how about you?
I guess I would say, just take the time to do it, reflect. That's part of why I really like, creating this presentation that I share with my study group, because it forces me to sit down and think about it, right? Because I know that I'm going to get some great feedback from the other people in my study group, and they're going to tell me their goals as well, right? So then I read those. But if you actually take the time to do it, then you're way more likely to actually set goals and meet those goals as well, especially if you have some accountability by sharing those goals with some people. I love your idea of the retreat, Patrick, and one of these days maybe I'll make that happen as well.
So yeah, I had the biggest intentions of like renting an Airbnb in Western North Carolina and just actually literally going away for a couple of days, but that just didn't happen this year. So next year.
Yeah, make it a goal for next year.
There you go. It's already on the books.
Perfect. I love it. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you both, Patrick, Lyndon, so much for your time. For everyone out there, if you want to learn more about XYPN, we're going to drop a link in the chat to schedule a call with one of our success strategists. They can tell you all about membership if you're interested. Also, we've got some resources on the benchmarking study. We don't share that study, but our team does. They can show it to you on a call if you're interested in seeing more about what Patrick was talking about. So lots of opportunities to get involved in some of that data. Also be sure to join us next week, and I hope you'll take a little time to fill out that Zoom survey and tell us how we did and share some topics for next time. So that's all we've got for today. Thank you both so much.
All right,
It was a
thank
pleasure.
you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.